All right. I'm Cynthia Carter Ching, and I used to be at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I'm now here at UC Davis. I'm a professor in the School of Education in Learning and Mind Sciences, so I've been asked on this panel by Carl to represent the K-12 perspective, whatever that means. So my colleagues, and now for something completely different. All right, so in looking over the program for the past few days, the next few days, I've noticed that there seems to be an awful lot that falls under the theme of appropriating ubiquitous, informal, and multimodal literacy venues for academic purposes. So things like Facebook, Second Life, blogging, chat, tweet, discussion boards, YouTube, etc. Right? And when I talk with or read articles from people who do this work in higher ed, there seems to be this assumption that they see themselves as making use of ubiquitous technologies that students are already familiar with, right? But then they have a hard time understanding why students aren't, in many cases, good at demonstrating academic literacy skills with these technologies, right? So merging the world of academia and the world of, say, Twitter seems to be harder than they expected. So from the K-12 perspective, I would like to offer two related explanations for this phenomenon, and I'd encourage colleagues to keep these things in mind as they engage with the excellent work that will be presented here at Computers and Writing over the next 3 days. So number one, whatever you might argue about the ways in which K-12 has prepared students for general academic literacy in higher education, in the vast majority of cases, it has left students entirely unprepared to use interactive technologies for academic purposes. With few exceptions, these media that have obvious affordances for dialogue and response are virtually non-existent in K-12 classrooms. So you might ask, why, right? There are a variety of explanations, but the main reason I hear from teachers is internet filters. Many schools have their internet filters turned up so high that anything other than a one-way download of information from pre-approved sites is forbidden. And when I do professional development with K-12 teachers these days, the most frequent response I get when suggesting some kind of freely available online technology for them to use with their students is, oh, that's not allowed at our school. Our filters will block that. It's maddening, frankly, but that's the way it is. So those of us in higher education really need to put pressure on K-12 to open up these media, because the pressure from policymakers and concerned citizens and parents is entirely from the more restrictive direction rather than less. In the meantime, though, this means that the kids who have internet access, unlimited texting phone contracts, blogging, MySpace, Twitter accounts, etc. at home are doing it ubiquitously everywhere except school. And the kids who can't afford it are not doing it at all. Which leads me to number two, and Jonathan hit this already, which is that ubiquitous computing sounds awfully utopian, but it leads us down a whole new chasm in the digital divide. So the divide isn't in the institutions of learning anymore because they're all wired and equipped ostensibly. But take a look at ubiquitous computing from the perspective of, say, the boy who is standing in a line 10 kids deep at the public library just to do some internet searching for his social studies paper. Take a look at ubiquitous computing from the perspective of the girl who updates her MySpace page from the computers at the local community center because she doesn't want her more well-off friends to know that she doesn't actually own one. Take a look at ubiquitous computing from the perspective of the urban community college student in my new ethnographic interview study who told me a story about trying to access his Blackboard homework from a seedy internet cafe, where not only can he not actually download anything, but the patrons at the next computers are quote-unquote doing bad things. In the age of ubiquitous computing, the now persistent digital divide is in the homes, in the pockets and purses, and in the people themselves, and that's actually a lot harder to address. So I would invite everyone to keep this in mind throughout the next 3 days, and let's think about how we can do better. So what do I do now, Carl? Are you going to come up and open it up for audience participation? Did Carl go away? No, he's down there.